Thank you for continuing to listen to our veteran stories. I'm real happy right now. Don Wooten and I with the Rotary Club of Moxville are happy to have Sheek Bowden. And we're going to get right into our conversation with Sheek Bowden. How are you, Sheek?
How am I?
How are you?
How are you? I'm getting old.
How old are you?
I'm pushing 84.
Pushing 84 years old. Were you in World War II?
Right there.
Tell me how you got into the war.
I volunteered. I wanted the Air Force. I didn't want to walk.
So what year did you volunteer for the Air Force?
1943, October.
Yeah, speak up just a little bit. In 1943.
Reported for active duty January of 44.
And where did you go to basic training?
Well, my basic training was at Miami Beach.
That sounds like a good place for basic.
Air Force.
Well, so is that an affirmative? It was a good place?
It's a good place, yes.
Yeah. So how long did you were you in Miami, and what took you to were you in the Pacific or the European theater?
In the Pacific. I think we were there about 3 months at Miami. I'm not certain.
And what was a regular day in Miami?
We didn't really have much basic training. I don't remember. I'm old and I forget things, but I don't remember our days, how they were.
So 3 months in Miami, then where were you taken to?
Went to Lowry Field in Denver, Colorado, armor gunner training up there.
And how long were you there?
Kyle, I don't know. I went through 2 schools there. We found out about the B-29 program, went over and applied for it and got it. And I think we came back and went to Texas about June.
Would you say the B-29 was a good plane, great plane, or?
B-29 was a new plane. It had a lot of features. It had some problems from what people say, but we were well pleased with it. Oh my.
What was your position in the plane?
I was the CFC gunner, top gunner.
So does that mean during a battle you would stand up?
Oh no, I had a seat. I sat there with sights and didn't have to stand up.
Were you in the front or the back?
I was in the back. And you had a seat, you had computerized sighting, I reckon you'd call it. You sat up there like this and you...
What kind of gun was it?
Well, there's 250 calibers in the turret behind me. I was the only one that controlled that. There was 450 calibers in the upper forward turret that I could control that.
So where were you stationed when you went to the South Pacific?
Well, our orders read to Saipan. They didn't need us, and they transferred us on to Tinian, and they needed us there. We were the first 2 replacement crews to go in.
So when you landed on that island, how long was it before you went into combat?
Well, it was, we landed in February, the last of February. I flew my first mission in May. Now, the thing about it, our crew was split up. Some of them went right on into combat on other crews. They put me on detached service, helping build a bomb trainer and running it. And then I got tired of that and applied back for combat on it, and they put me right back on the crew.
So you heard stories from February to May of all of these guys that were going out. You knew what they were experiencing during that time.
They had some rough missions.
I've asked this question to all of our veterans. Were you scared?
Kyle, I don't know that I was ever scared. You want me to tell you the story of my first mission?
Let's hear it.
I flew as right gunner on another crew. I don't even remember who the pilot was. And 100 miles out of Japan, you cut your gunnery system on, you got ready to go in. Well, I was sitting there in the right. Somebody was scared to death. You could hear him breathing over the intercom. and I thought it was me. The first time I'd been up there, I took my mic off and it still came through. Wasn't me.
Did you ever find out who it was?
Don't know who it was. I have an idea, but we won't bring that out.
So was that first mission, did it wind up being combat?
Oh, it was combat, yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, we just went in. I don't know what we bombed.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to have fighter protection. I didn't see any of it. But most of my missions were low-level flights.
6,000, 10,000?
Well, 5 to 8,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Low level, and incendiary missions are mining missions.
Mm-hmm.
We flew a lot of mining missions. The 504th did.
What is? I know what incendiary is, but what is
Well,
mining?
the mines, we went up in mine straits and ports and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how many mines you had on. You had the forward and rear bomb bays, and like I say, you had at least 4 mines, 2 in each bomb bay, maybe more. And these were big dudes.
When the bomb bay doors opened, if you were up top, could you hear that? Is it kind of like landing gear coming out?
I don't recall. If I'm remembering correctly, they were under air pressure, pneumatic, but I'm not certain.
Mm-hmm. So, and I've told everybody, and I'll tell you this, we're going to ask questions, and Don, if he has questions, feel free to ask. If you want to answer them, feel free to, and if you don't, just say, Kyle, I really don't want to answer that. But here's going to be one of those questions. You were a gunner.
That's right.
Did you have to pull the trigger?
Kyle, I got on Art Tomes's crew and flew my missions, all except that first one with him. I did not fire my gun in combat. I was the good luck piece.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the missions that we were on, we had planes shot down.
Mm-hmm.
What you had at that time, the planes took off one after the other, and you basically had an individual sortie up there. And we had no problems. We got caught in searchlights one night, and if our radio operator had not acted fast, throwing out rope or tinfoil, as they called it, to deflect the radar, we probably would have been shot out.
Mm-hmm.
But this was on a return from on a mining mission, a long mission. But that's the only thing we saw. I saw flak under one plane on a right wing at one time. I fired my guns one time in combat. We landed on Kwajalein on the way to Saipan, and on Kwajalein we loaded our guns. The procedure was to test fire them when you got airborne, and we did. We followed procedure, test fired the guns. I was in combat then,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't sighting at a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to clean them after we got on Saipan.
Mm-hmm. When those missions would take place, you were going into the unknown. I mean, certainly,
Oh, yes.
that was an unknown as to what was going to become of it. Was God in that picture? In other words, did you and God form a relationship?
Somebody looked after us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody looked after us.
How long were you over in the South Pacific?
1 year, and I got there in February, and I came home. I was discharged in March.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was the homecoming like? Were you married?
No. Little old young boy coming home. Hitchhiked, I think, from Fort Bragg.
And where did you meet your bride?
Oh, I knew her long before that.
Did you have her on your mind while you were overseas?
No, she was just a little girl. Her father picked me to pray for me. Of course, as a Methodist, being picked by a Baptist. And I was their paper boy. And there was contact coming up. She was 2 or 3 years behind me, though.
So, before you were married, her father prayed for you
Oh, yeah.
while you were overseas. Now, you have some pictures here. Will you show me what you got? Because I think I see some medals.
No, I brought this. Now the medals, that a crowd fixed that up for me.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I've got there is the air medal and the good conduct medal. And
Is this a sergeant?
oh yeah, I was tech sergeant. That's what my MOS called for.
What's this one right here?
No, that's a good conduct medal. That was harder to get than anything else.
Mm-hmm. And what's this one?
That's the air medal.
Mm-hmm.
I got one air medal and one cluster with it.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing 3 battle stars there.
Mm-hmm.
The war ended by what 5 missions gave you an air medal. 5 more gave you a Oak Leaf cluster. 15 missions gave you the DFC. This is what I had, what came out. The group had, I don't know how many battle stars they were supposed to get. I'm entitled to that. They had 2 presidential citations. I was supposed to have a DFC. I didn't get it. Nobody was concerned about that. We were coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. The only thing that would have happened if I had had any of those, I was supposed to fly back on a plane. We got a B-29 ready, and they bumped us off of it, me and another one or two, because they had shipped some people in from overseas, had families and more points than we did, and they booted us off. We acted like it didn't make any difference, but it just killed us. In fact, one of them was from California. He lived on, was staying on one end of the Quonset hut, and I was on the other one. And he was talking in his sleep the next night. After that, rebel.
Going home was a big deal,
Oh yeah,
especially after you'd been away from home as long as you had.
we'll never get out of this hole.
Mm-hmm.
What is this right here? It looks like wing. That looks
Oh, that's the crew member wings.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
The gunner's wings had a bomb on it.
Did you earn your stripes in combat?
Oh, what you did, they promoted you fairly fast over there. You had a MOS or service number, and it called for a higher, whatever rank you could get, and that was the rank on my position. Our flight engineer went over as an enlisted man, and at the same rank that I did. I think we were corporals or buck sergeants, one. But his MOS called for an officer's rating, and they gave him a promotion over there up to, well, made him a flight officer, not a second lieutenant. He lives over here in Winston-Salem now.
Now, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah, he's mean.
Oh, well, thank you. That's
We'll edit
we'll edit that out. But you have kept up with a lot of your friends that you made in the South Pacific. I mean, even as of this past week, did you not have a reunion with some
We
of
had a
them?
reunion. It was very slim.
Mm-hmm.
I
How
have
slim
a
was it?
picture of it if you would like it.
Do you have it? Let's look at it. That is a great photo. Let's, like, you hold that,
Yes.
please. Let's let the camera come in here. Now I'm looking at it upside down. Which one are you, Sheek? I'm looking at it upside down.
Oh, I'm right here.
Okay.
Now, this is all we had of the veterans that were there. Now, we had several that had some health problems. All right, now let's see. Right there is my airplane commander.
Mhm.
He made it on this one. He missed the last
Now you all get together. How often?
one. We're having one about once a year, about every year.
Because a couple of the guys that were with us last Saturday had not done reunions, and I know that a lot of groups have done reunions over the years.
Mm-hmm. The 504th Bomb Group.
That's right.
Tell me what those guys mean to you.
Well, they're just people that we were over there with.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here means a whole lot to me.
Tell me why.
He was airplane commander. He was an old man when I was over there.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19. He was 25. He was a pretty sharp pilot.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is phenomenal, and I'm so glad that you kept up with them. Let me ask you this, Sheek. We're asking this question to all of our veterans. Today is October the 1st, actually, 2009. And our purpose in these videos is so that 25 years from now, you may be alive in 25 years, but I think the chances are I'm probably going to be an old man, and you're probably going to be deceased, because we're all going to be called home to the Lord Jesus at some point. What would you want to tell someone listening to this video about your experience and about World War II and about the United States of America?
You don't want to get me started, do you?
Please.
World War II was a situation that caught up a bunch of young boys, and you had some that made the grade, you had some that slipped, you had some that were thrown in positions and were called heroes. You had some that had things happen to them and they flipped. The man who I took his position was a fine young man from all indications. I never knew him. See, we were replacements, and he had something occurred and he lost it. And I would suggest that everybody, before they condemn somebody, try to walk in those shoes. You've got people that are being prosecuted now for things that they have done over in Iraq, and you don't know the details on them. And it's an awful hard matter to keep you cool when you don't know who's got a knife or a gun to stab you in the back. You have so many things happening in the world today, and I don't know the answers to them. We can sit back and criticize, but the biggest thing that we've got in the United States and throughout the world is greed. Everybody wants something for nothing, and we need a reawakening. We need somebody. Well, all of us need to. We need to step in as an individual and let it grow. But we need to get some morality back in life. I think we've slipped. The United States, I think, has slipped, and the world has slipped.
We've forgotten to be grateful. I
Well,
think.
What would you say is the most profound, lasting effect that you had from your experience in World War II?
Kyle, I don't know. I can't put my finger on anything there. We were just little old boys over there, and we had a job to do. It ended up that mine, I had an easy time of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I said, I was a good luck piece that got on this crew. They had problems before I got on it, before I got with them, and we had basically had easy sailing. We had one or two problems on the thing, but I mean nothing that was amounted to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Are you saying you're the good luck piece because the luck changed?
oh, I
you
was a
came
good
into
I
that
was a
group?
good luck piece. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So those guys,
Well, they should thank me, you know. Our tail gunner, the original tail gunner that went over with our crew, ended up on this crew. He got on it right at the very beginning, and he was on it on the first low-level attack, I think, over Tokyo. They were going in 5,000 to 8,000 feet with no fighter protection, no nothing. And he came to tell us goodbye. His suicide mission. He wouldn't return. And it was the safest missions that we had. It was safer than the high altitude missions that they had been flying.
Did you lose many friends?
We didn't have that many. We had several losses.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first or the second mission that I flew on, there were 929s burning, cracked up on takeoff, with loads of bombs or mines, whatever they had. But there was danger to it. There was mistakes made,
Mm-hmm.
and
they just overloaded them?
oh no, it just matter, they made mistakes taking off. You had 8,500-foot runways,
Right.
and they were built up above and it sloped off to the ocean. And things happened. The 29 had some problems, and you had people that made mistakes when they were flying. It's easy to do it.
I've asked this question to every veteran, and I'll ask you. Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
I want to comment on that now.
Please.
I have stated that I was on a mission the same day that Furby dropped the atomic bomb. I wasn't. We left an evening before. They took off after 12 o'clock. We were in the air at the same time, and we were returning from a mission.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a mining mission. And for some reason, our radio operator tuned in on the Japs, and we couldn't tell what had taken place. You couldn't understand a word, but we knew that something had taken place. And we discussed this with the historian of the 504th group out there on this reunion. He was a POW over there, and somebody had stated wanting to know how many lives the dropping of the atomic bomb saved. And I've stated all along that it saved more Japanese lives than it did Americans, because they were geared on that frame there that men, women, and children would die. Well, Fisk was telling me about it. He was tied up. He's been involved in the 504th history and a lot of things in the military. And he said that the Japanese had basically 2 million seasoned troops that were there to protect their homeland. And they had the men, women, and children, up to 14 or 15 million, that were going to be involved in it on a last-ditch effort. They were there to die. So that's 15, and 2 is 17 million. And the estimate is that there'd have been 2 million Americans killed on that invasion. I'd seen somewhere where they indicated that they thought it would be about 500,000, but he said it was estimated that it would be. So you're pushing 20 million people. Now, the dropping of the atomic bomb was horrible. The destruction, the death. Of course, now the Tokyo raid, the fire raid, burned, I think, 16 square miles of Tokyo and killed, I think, more people than the Hiroshima bomb did. But the dropping of the bomb, I would say, saved American lives, and it saved Japanese and the Japanese culture.
Sheek, let me ask you this. You were in a plane that's objective was, you were to protect the plane was your mission.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
Exactly. But the plane's mission was to drop mines and incendiary bombs. How did a young fellow from Davie County, 18 years old, after the war was over, deal with the fact that he was in missions that was dropping bombs in cities that was destructive to people?
Carl, you don't see it. You didn't really think about it. You were doing a job to try to go up there and end the war. Now, you have had people here, and I'm ashamed of myself that I did not talk to him about it, because he was a good customer of mine. John White up here was a Marine on 3, 4, maybe 5 of those island invasions. And you talking about catching it, now they caught it. I saw on Saipan, Tinian was a textbook invasion. They hit where they weren't supposed to, and they got in. I think they lost 300 and some men there. But Saipan was a dogfight. Iwo Jima was bad. And you take these people that went in on those invasions. Well, now now they can tell you something. You talk about being scared. Now you can be scared there. Mm-hmm. You can get scared anywhere. And
well, Sheek, we're winding up our 30 minutes
all right.
that we've got allotted. Is there anything you'd like to add to finish this conversation?